Hi everyone, I'm John Baumgart, and today I wanted to make a video about what it's like to be an entrepreneur. Uh, I felt this video would be interesting so I could share my thoughts to anyone who's ever considered this, thought about it, and was curious. I found a few videos when I was searching, some were so-so, so I thought I would share my information. In terms of this channel, I'm not sure exactly what direction I'll go. I may develop it into something more, but for right now, I'm just volunteering the information. You can subscribe if you want. I'm not being very aggressive about it. I may change in the future. So this is just some very direct, free information to you, and I just feel like volunteering it because I like the internet and the idea that you can share these type of things, and I benefit a lot from other people's videos. So those are my intentions. As for me, I have my own consulting company, and I've been doing this now for over 4 years. And if you do decide that you want to go down this route, I think it's good to measure, when your last paycheck was. Mine was in the end of March 2014. It's a good measurement to see your progress, to see how long you've been going. So since then, I've been on my own. And what is it like? Well, the start is when you decide to become an entrepreneur, you have to be used to being alone. What that means is you're going to be working a lot by yourself. You're going to be planning things a lot, and at least for me, if I want to plan, where I'm going with the budget, where the company is going, I need a lot of quiet and solitude to do that. Can't do that with all the coworkers running around or in the day with questions and interruptions and things like that. But more importantly, you have to work a lot, especially in the beginning, and most of the time you're going to be working by yourself. In the corollary, if you are working for a startup company and the CEO is just putting in the minimum hours, then it's a sign the company isn't going places, because there's no easy way around this. No company, Amazon, none of these places were formed by someone working a 9 to 5. And hey, maybe I'm going to scare you out of it, but I'm just being honest. You have to work a lot, and you have to be used to working a lot just on your own with everyone out of the office gone, and kind of asking yourself, why am I doing this? So the motivation has to be there. The next thing is, and this is going to be a rant, but there's no, I've hinted at it, there's no glory in this. There's definitely no glory. I've seen these videos of, and really these are people just fooling you outright, saying, oh, become a digital nomad, and then they show them surfing and the Amazon and everything. I could tell you that basically having a business is the complete opposite of all of those things, especially travel. Take it from me. My business is in Europe. I spend most of my time here. I travel a lot of places, and business travel is incredibly stressful. Just to give you an idea, when you see these people surfing and everything else, this is really what it's like. You have to wake up early, because if you're on a budget, and you should be if you're starting off your business, probably your flight is very early. To get a flight in the afternoon costs a lot more in most cases. And many times you have a connecting flight. So you have to wake up early. You have to plan the time to get to the airport. That often involves some kind of taxi or bus ride or something else. Once you get to the airport, you have to figure out where it is you'll drop off your bag and check in. You have the whole security. If you're bringing computers with you because you're traveling for work, security is a bit more detailed, because you always have to take out all the laptops and devices. You might often have a border control. So after going through the security, you have to wait in line at the border control, which is never a breeze, because there's always a limited amount of people there. So you're standing in line, for another 15 or 20 minutes. Then finally you get onto the area where you wait for the plane. And this whole time it's very unproductive. It's hard to do anything besides send some messages, because you're always moving just from the next to the next to the next. Oftentimes if you're going to more remote locations, it could be a smaller charter flight. That means you can't bring your bag on there, and you have to take a bus to the plane, which is another drag, because you have to wait for everyone to get on the bus and to leave the bus. It's very stressful. Then you actually get on the plane, then you have to shut off your phone. You can't do any work then. That's fine. You can read and do other things, but my productivity on a day of travel is like next to nothing. I can't do anything, and sometimes that's the whole day. Now, if you do land in a foreign country, and this is what you take for granted just if you only travel domestically, is internet. You know, if you're doing this digital business or whatever you want to call it, then you need the internet. The problem is every foreign country has their own internet apparatus or infrastructure. Now, you can get some phone plans that, you know, depending on where you go, will allow you to do the roaming. I've found it's tougher in more exotic locations. Usually you need to get the local SIM card, and that presents a whole challenge upon itself. You could rely on Wi-Fi, but then everywhere you go, you need to look up the Wi-Fi password. If you have multiple devices, I have 4. I have a personal phone, a business phone, and 2 computers. That means 4 devices you're connecting. So I'm going into all this detail so you know that if you watch a video and the people are surfing and traveling, that is not what it's like to have a business. When I travel for business, if I'm lucky, I get one nice day to myself, because then I have to get back to the office and catch up on everything that I've missed. And this is the reality of having a business. So if there's anything you can take away from this video, is it's not surfing, it's not partying and everything else. Those are nice perks you get maybe down the road, or if you don't want to have a business that grows. Then you can party and surf and everything else. But if you want to have a growing business or even just stay alive, you have to work an incredible amount of hours. So don't fall for all these videos promising a reality that doesn't exist. It is hard no matter what you do. And the last point I'll make is, if you think you can just write a blog and make millions doing that, well, anyone here has a laptop. And I'm not want to be someone who's discouraging you. I'm just telling you, if anyone can make a blog and a laptop, which doesn't require a lot of work, then you have to work that much harder to stand out. And you have to really bring something that others aren't. So just keep it in mind. And so I have no motivation besides sharing the truth here. So that's what business travel is like. It's not easy. It's not glorious. And and in terms of vacation, you can take a few days off, but it's very hard to take your mind completely off of the work in the beginning stages. Until you have a lot of people covering everything, it's going to be on your mind. Even if you are on a vacation, mentally it's hard to just take the time. So realize that if you jump into it, what I've mentioned and recommended is, if you decide to take the plunge, first take a couple weeks off and rest yourself, because you will be working, and the breaks don't come up. You can relax a bit in the lull times, but a true proper vacation like you had a job, you have to say goodbye to. It will always be on your mind. You're always going to have to check something in the beginning stages. Now, I've gone into a lot of things that make this not easy, but there are a lot of upsides. The biggest is the educational aspect. I'd say that's the best part of having a business. Is I have learned in these 4 years so much about life, about people, about all aspects of the business, far more than I ever did in, let's say, the 10 years prior or so that I was working in a company. Yeah, I learned things, but I slowly learned some skills, and I did learn a lot, but not at the pace, because when you have a business, you're everything in the beginning. Your HR, your marketing, your sales, your accounting, your everything. So your skill set goes like this. And that's one of the biggest benefits, because at a minimum you will learn about yourself. Maybe it's not for you, and that's a valuable lesson in itself, because then okay, I tried it, and you have to give yourself credit, because most people don't even make the plunge. So if you've tried it and it's not for you, that's a valuable lesson. You could have spent a lot more time and energy, or just your whole life lived with the regret. Knowing that it wasn't for you is valuable, and if you do like it, the learning just keeps going. And the nice thing is, you might, this is where I would encourage you, even if you're really going down the entrepreneurial route, you say, but what about a job? What would I do? Well, you'll make connections. And the more you learn, the more connections you make. Even if it doesn't work out, you do become quite employable afterwards, because there's always a value in a company down the road for someone who's taken risks, and for the experience and the exposure you have. You could always consult other companies. Actually more doors open up to you when you go down the entrepreneurial route than when you're working traditionally for a place. In general, the doors tend to close. And I'm not against it. I may at some point work again, depending on what I want to do. But for now, I enjoy this, and I find that many of the doors open in terms of the networking and in terms of the knowledge. And the best part is, whether you make money or not, those things, they never go away. The money part is nice, but you shouldn't do it just for the money. There's other videos that talk all about that and motivation. I'm more explaining kind of what it's like, not really trying to motivate you, maybe a little. A big lesson I learned is on discipline. You really need to have it, and a mistake I made is I was very disciplined about my job, but then I let all the other parts of my life go away. I've since recovered from that. I've noticed tremendous benefits. So, I went through a stage where for most of my life I'd been healthy, and actually when I began the business, in the beginning it did take a very big toll on my health, and that's a warning I will make, is you have to bring, you can't just let the discipline in the business slide on other things. So I used to say, well, I've worked, all of these hours and everything else, so I'm not going to go to the gym and I'm going to eat this unhealthy food or whatever. And that was a mistake, and I was in that area for quite a long time. I've since climbed out of it and just felt so much better, because actually, if you can carry on this discipline throughout all of your life, you'll find you have a lot more energy, motivation. You'll be able to last kind of the long marathon, which is something I'll get to, that is having a business. So the discipline has to come everywhere, and really, from the get-go, I would recommend to have a lot of things lined up. Your friends and your family relations lined up, your health and everything in order. All of these things really all need to come together, and this is why it's so tough. It's not easy, and you will, if you are working very, very hard, but the other aspects of your life are out of order, it will block you, because you just can't perform very well. You can't work hard the next day if you are not physically in good shape, if you're not eating the right foods, or if you substitute by drinking too many energy drinks or caffeine, or eating bad things, going down the route of drugs. All these things are just pitfalls. You may hear these stories of these Wall Street guys, partying and doing all this. Those are for movies, and it's great, you can watch, but in real life, those people burn out, or they run out of money, or they become drug addicts, or they go to jail. I mean, it's not, these aren't serious long-term business people. And that's the other thing I'll mention, I had hinted at, is this is for the long term if you do it, meaning it's a long haul. A guy who's very more on the inspirational end, he says things far better than I can, is Gary Vaynerchuk. So listen to him if you want to get inspired. But the one thing, that he does mention is this patience thing, which I have to reinforce, because it's actually demotivational, meaning that you're not going to see results for a long time. You may not see results even in years. He is a good example. He made this, I don't know if you don't know so much about him, but he was one of the first people to do what I'm doing, but way back before this was an adopted medium. And he did videos on wine, and you can still look it up. It's, when he was younger, he must have done like 80 of these videos on wine. He's a very dedicated guy, and it took a while before any of that really saw any fruition. So I mention it because I like to listen to his things in the motivational end, but I can say from living it that you need to have patience. And that also means the way that you work. And that's another mistake I made in the beginning is, and I'll explain because it kind of contradicts the first point about working very hard, is yes, you want to work hard, but you need to also pace yourself. Many times I wanted to get a big project done or something finished, or I was behind, and I would just work ungodly hours. And the problem is, there's only so much energy you can output throughout the day. There are these rare cases of people who don't need a lot of sleep, but the average person, and let's say most of us in this video, you can only do so much in one day. And if you're running a business, then this is not some crazy sprint. It's more like a marathon. And so, to use the whole analogy, if you're running a marathon and you just give all your energy in the first 2 minutes, what's going to happen? You'll be way in the back, you'll pass out, who knows what. You're not going to win. So you got to pace yourself. And that means, I've found at least, there are times I have to work hard, and sometimes I'll set aside days, saying, all right, this is going to be a longer day. But in general, there's only so much that you can get done in one day. And I've even found that when I really, from time and time again, try to push past certain hours, that the productivity just dies down, that I would push so hard for these, let's say, last 2 hours, and I get maybe what I could have done the next day fresh in an hour and a half. It took me 3 hours, and then you're just wasting time. You know, you got to relax. And that is another part. I mentioned the vacation thing is tough. However, there's nothing stopping you from relaxing outside of work and really placing an emphasis. You know, I take sometimes 1 day off and make a 3-day weekend. But another mistake I made is I went a long time without relaxing at all. And it catches up on you. And how we relax is important too. And this gets back onto the discipline things. I would not relax in the best when I first did this, meaning I would use alcohol to relax, have some drinks, I would eat lousy food, all as a way to cover up all the stresses I had. And that was actually to my detriment because I gained a lot of weight. My tolerance for alcohol went up, which means I could drink more. I just wasn't living a healthy life. I started to notice problems, and I kind of took the stress levels down a little bit, started getting into eating healthier, eating right, exercising, and now I can get a lot done. I'm far more productive. I have a lot of energy. But that was all with the realization that, you know what, it's not a nonstop, just drive and sprint. And, it's okay. Maybe this year won't be as good as last year, but if mentally I'm okay, that means in the long term I can do better. Because, for any type of business, you may strike it rich. You may hit the top. But in most cases, having a business takes a long time. It requires a lot of dedication, effort, and there's no guarantee after all of that you'll even see anything. And that's why, I'm wrapping in these different themes here and there, but that's why where I can end this with is just realize that by doing this, by deciding to take the plunge, so to say, meaning you're working completely on your own, that's something a lot of people will never do. So you should pat yourself in the back just for that. And as soon as you take the lunge, as soon as you decide to go, you are going to start learning a lot about yourself, about business, and regardless if you make any money, those things you can never take away. And like anything else, a common saying is that knowledge is power, and it's very much true. So this is what it's like. Maybe I'll make some follow-up videos. If you have ideas for specific things I can tell you about, there's an overview of what it's like to have your own business. So best of luck.